The sun was setting over Abuja, casting long shadows over the bustling streets. A young man named John had just arrived from Lagos, carrying nothing but a small bag and big dreams. He had come to the city in search of greener pastures, hoping to build a better life for himself. John had always heard that Abuja was a land of opportunities, a place where hard work could turn a poor man into a rich one. He had no family in the city, no friends to welcome him, but his heart was filled with hope. As he walked down the busy road, he saw a small signboard. "House for rent, affordable price." John's heart leaped with excitement. He approached the compound, a large, beautiful building painted in bright colors. The landlord, a middle-aged man with cold eyes, greeted him with a smile. "You are lucky," the man said. "This house is very cheap. People don't stay long, but you look like a strong man. You will enjoy it here." John didn't understand why people left quickly, but he was too happy to ask questions. The price was perfect, and the house was comfortable. He quickly paid and moved in that same night. Little did he know, the house held a dark secret. At first, everything seemed normal. John settled into his new home, found a small job, and began planning for a better future. But after a few weeks, strange things started happening. At night, he would hear whispers, low, sorrowful voices echoing through the walls. At first, he thought it was his imagination, but the voices grew louder. Sometimes, he heard footsteps in the empty hallway. Other times, his room became ice cold, even though Abuja was always hot. One night, as John lay on his bed, half asleep, he felt a heavy presence in the room. His body froze, and his breath became shallow. He tried to move, but it was as if something was holding him down. Then, he heard a voice, deep, sorrowful, and filled with pain. "Leave this house, before it is too late." John jumped up, gasping for air. He switched on the light, his heart pounding in his chest. The room was empty. His hands trembled as he wiped the sweat off his forehead. "Maybe I'm just tired," he told himself, trying to ignore the fear creeping into his heart. But the next day, things got worse. John had saved up some money to start a small business. He planned to open a shop, but everything went wrong. First, his money disappeared from his bag. Then, his boss at work accused him of stealing and fired him. To make matters worse, his health began to fail. He felt weak, tired, and constantly sick for no reason. John couldn't understand what was happening. Why was his life falling apart? Then, he began noticing his neighbors. A woman in the next flat, Mama Ife, had once been a successful trader. But now, she was always crying, struggling to feed her children. A young man who had moved in before John had once been full of energy, but now he wandered the compound like a madman. Something was very wrong with this house. But John didn't know how deep the evil went, until he had a vision. John knew something was wrong, but he didn't know what. He decided to visit his neighbor, Mama Ife, to ask if she had noticed anything strange. When he knocked, the door opened slowly. Mama Ife looked weak and tired, her once bright eyes now dull. "Good evening, Ma," John greeted. "Sorry to disturb you, but I want to ask, have you ever experienced strange things in this house?" Mama Ife sighed and looked around, as if checking if someone was listening. Then, she pulled John inside and shut the door. "My son, you are new here, so I will tell you the truth," she whispered. "This house is cursed. Everyone who lives here suffers. I used to have a successful business, but everything crashed when I moved in. My husband ran mad and left us. And now," she touched her chest, "I don't even know how I will survive." John's heart pounded. "But why?" he asked. Mama Ife shook her head. "Nobody knows. Some say the landlord did something evil. Others say spirits live in the house. But one thing is certain, anyone who stays here will suffer." That night, John couldn't sleep. The whispers in the house grew louder, and his room became cold as ice. Then, something strange happened. A shadowy figure appeared at the foot of his bed. It was tall, dark, and featureless, but its eyes glowed red. John tried to scream, but his voice was gone. "Leave this house, or you will die," the voice thundered. Then, John saw something terrifying. The floor beneath him became transparent, and beneath it, he saw a buried corpse. The body was decayed, but the face was twisted in pain. John woke up screaming. He knew now, this house was built on the body of someone who had been sacrificed. And there was only one person who could have done such a thing. The landlord. The next morning, John couldn't shake the vision he had seen. The image of the corpse under the house haunted him, and the voice still echoed in his ears. He knew he had to leave, but there was something else, the other tenants. They were all suffering too, just like him. John decided to visit the landlord, hoping to get some answers. He had to know the truth. The landlord's house was just a short walk from the compound. When John arrived, the man was sitting on his porch, sipping tea. His face seemed calm, but John could sense something was wrong. "Good morning, sir," John greeted, trying to keep his voice steady. "I need to speak with you about the house I rented." The landlord looked at him with those cold eyes. "What about it?" John hesitated for a moment. I think there's something wrong with the house. People say it's cursed." The landlord's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, John saw a flicker of something darker, anger, or fear. "You shouldn't listen to gossip," the landlord said, his voice suddenly cold. "The house is perfectly fine. It's just the people who live there. They bring their own problems." But John could see through the lies. The man was hiding something. "I know what you've done," John said quietly. "You built the house on a dead body. The spirits are angry, and they are taking their revenge." The landlord's face twisted in shock, but then, a dark smile crept across his lips. "You are a fool if you think I would let a few dead spirits stop me. This is my property, and I control it." John felt a chill run down his spine. He knew then that this man was not just a landlord, he was a ritualist. He had used the house for some dark purpose. John's hands trembled, but he turned and walked away, not wanting to provoke the landlord any further. That night, John couldn't sleep. The whispers in the house grew louder, and the air seemed to press down on him. His health continued to decline, and he felt more and more drained every day. But he knew one thing, he could not stay in the house any longer. John decided to pray. He had always believed in the power of prayer, but now, more than ever, he needed God's help. He knelt by his bed, eyes closed, hands clasped, and began to pray with all his heart. "Lord, I don't know what's happening here, but please, help me. Show me the truth, and guide me out of this nightmare." As he prayed, a strange calmness washed over him. His mind cleared, and for the first time in days, he felt a sense of peace. Then, something incredible happened. John suddenly saw a vision, a dark tunnel opening up before him. At the end of the tunnel stood a man in a black robe. The man was holding a ritual knife, and beside him was a pile of bones. The man raised the knife high, but just as he was about to strike, a bright light filled the tunnel. The light was so powerful that it pushed the man back. "Leave this place," a voice boomed, louder than anything John had ever heard. "You are not welcome here." John opened his eyes, his heart racing. He had seen the truth. The landlord was a man who used dark powers to control the spirits of the dead. But the light in his vision had shown him something else. The power of God could break the curse. John knew he had to leave, and quickly. The next morning, John packed his things in a hurry. He had no more time to waste. He left the house and went to visit Mama Ife, the young man who had lost his mind, and all the other tenants. He gathered them in the courtyard and told them what he had seen. "The house is cursed," he said, his voice shaking. "It was built on the body of a person who was sacrificed for dark rituals. The landlord is behind all of this. But there is a way out. We must all leave." At first, they didn't believe him. Some laughed, others shook their heads. But John stood firm. "I have seen the truth," he said, "and if we leave this house, we will all prosper. But if we stay, we will continue to suffer." Finally, after much persuasion, the tenants agreed to leave. They all packed their things and left the cursed house. The moment they stepped out of the compound, a strange thing happened. The air seemed to clear, and they all felt a sudden sense of relief. Their health improved, their fortunes changed, and they all found new opportunities. John was the first to find success. He opened his shop, and within a year, his business was thriving. Mama Ife found a new trade, and the other tenants rebuilt their lives. The landlord, however, was not so fortunate. Rumors spread that he had been cursed by the spirits he had wronged. He vanished without a trace, never to be seen again. John's life was forever changed. He had learned a valuable lesson: no matter how desperate you are, never trade your soul for the promise of riches. And he also learned the power of faith and prayer. No matter how dark things seemed, God's light would always find a way to shine through. The end.